Hello, welcome to Creative You Podcast. I'm Catherine Kirby from Pennsylvania, the USA, and I'd like to welcome all of you. I'm so happy for anybody that wants to join me. This is a podcast about knitting, crocheting, and becoming a person that loves God. Okay, so here I am at the yarn shop. This is a selection of cards. And I don't have everything here, but it's the perfect time. We just finished with Crochet Club. And I'm going to show you what I've been doing. I'm also committed to getting an old project finished. The last time I was working on, I guess it's Luuk, L-U-U-K hat. It's a free pattern by Annis Jones. I did it with Euro Fair Isle. And until I accidentally put in an extra row, it was following the little Fair Isle hatches really nicely. You get the bobble. This goes from a preemie size to a large adult. It is cute. I didn't think I would wear it. This is a child size, but it is really cute. I love it. I want to do another one to match. This is a worsted weight yarn to do the toddler vest. In a previous podcast, I finished the toddler vest by JoAnne Turcotte. Free pattern on Ravelry, and I put the little buttons, but it's supposed to have handmade flowers. So later, I told you the last podcast, I've been making a lot of mistakes, and I think it's just my mind is overwhelmed with my husband's illness, maybe. I was doing a second one with Katya as I actually like the back better than the front, although it's done in one piece and then a 3-needle bind off, because I have the different colors here that don't really match. But I'm thinking if I put hot pink flowers here and maybe here, it will pull it together. Sometimes doing a pattern a second time is more dangerous than the first time, because I cast on and thought, oh, I know this. I don't have to look at the pattern. I knit in garter stitch for 6 rows. And it came to me. Wonder what it looks like if I turn it the other way. Nah. I forgot to put the buttonholes. Well, invention sometimes comes because it's a necessity. So I could either put the little frog things there, or maybe split the yarn and create a buttonhole. I have some pretty orange colored hearts. Next podcast. I think most of you know that I knit on the Addie King machine for charity, and it's interesting to see how variegated yarns turn out. So when you look at this, I don't think it looks that impressive. It's a much deeper blue purple than the picture shows, but once it's on, it actually looks cute. But there is color pulling. The best patterns for variegated yarn are patterns like seed stitch or slip stitch, or sometimes just plain stockinette stitch isn't as attractive as you want. This was another yarn, Ella Ray Lace Merino, but it's actually a worsted, and again, not really that attractive. It could have been nicer, I think, if I would have had a solid brim, but I got a new crochet book on crocheting motifs, And I've been also thinking about needle felting some things on. My Addy machine is not working right. I took it apart, cleaned it. It had easier turn, and now it's back to issues. The last 5 hats I tried to do all were a mess. So I saw a video, maybe I need a new handle. But I'm trying to learn the right, this is basically a hat inside a hat, the right number of colors to do stripes. Now this is pretty darn generic. If you tie that up, I don't know, you could maybe make it into, it would be a fish. I think this could be a fish. What do you think? I think it's a cuter hat than a fish. A big eye right there, because doesn't really do a lot for me as far as the striping sequence as a hat. But if I turn this into a fish, you'll be the first to know. Then I tried this, and it's not bad when you put it on. No, it's be okay. No, I'm not a toddler, but that's kind of cute. So I wrote all these down, trying to get the perfect formula. I made my stripes thinner, but this one longer, so you have some variation. Red on the inside. And again, it's not bad. But I still don't think, oh man, ear flaps. I'm creating my own ear flaps. I still don't think it's exactly right. Now, a child would wind it up like that, and then the blue would go together. So no, that's not. And then this one was just one color inside, one color outside. These are all done with washable wool. Now, that's kind of cute. Reverse it. You got the kiwi and the pine. Okay, what else? I'm dedicated to trying to get an old project finished each time. And one of my customers brought in the boho knot bag that she's probably had on her needles for 5 years. She retired from being a beautician. She's finally finished it. It is by Cindy Pylon. It's an $8 pattern. So it's like this. This is done with Noro crayon yarn. Crayon means crayon. And she brought it into me to felt it for her. And since I have that big herringbone basket I want to felt, it's perfect. I put the baby flower motif blanket on hold for a week because the Ella Rae velveteen cotton was really making my hands and wrist hurt. But surprisingly, a lady called the shop on Saturday and said, "Do you sell that? I need one more ball." And she was crocheting a blanket with elephants, and it sounded great, and she didn't have any complaints. This is the boho knot bag, and for an $8 pattern, I think it could be written a lot better. It could be condensed. The rows are far apart. It could have just said knit the odd rows, and then some of the rows will say like knit purl, knit purl, knit purl, knit purl, knit purl, knit purl, instead of just knit one, purl one, repeat. And she does that a lot. KP, 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 knit two together, PK, 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 PK. To me, I think it could be. I'm also wondering why the strap has to be in seed stitch if it's going to be felted and you won't see the stitches. Does that stitch make it sturdier? I'm not sure. The project that I pulled out to finish, do you ever feel ashamed that you let something sit and sit and sit? We had crochet club tonight, and I was telling Bonnie and Holly that I'm in bed with my husband. And you know, they say a lady's mind never shuts down. And I'm saying to him, years ago, a pharmaceutical rep came into my family practice office, and she was saying, well, I quilt. And she told me, well, I don't like to put the binding on. Should I have a beautiful queen size quilt I made 3 years ago, sitting in my closet because I don't want to put the binding on? And in telling that story, I was judging her. Well, God was about ready to tap on my shoulder, because the next day I found this. Now, this was on a podcast last fall, I'm guessing. It is done with Euro Baby Soft Cotton Chunky, which is a cotton acrylic. It took 4 skeins, I think. It's in this book called Babe Soft Cotton Chunky. And there's the picture. I would love to hear comments. Love to hear what all of you are making. 4. Yep, it took 4. I did. Got disturbed because of the pattern. So you knit the garter stitch rows, and then you put the edge stitches on little holders, and then you do the whole body. And then when you get finished the whole body, then you have to take these stitches off the holder and knit the whole way up, which I just did it on little double point needles. It does tend to curl in. Garter stitches are smaller, shorter, not as tall as stockinette stitches. So you'll see blankets that instead of being straight at the bottom, the garter stitch border pulls them up in a curve. The way you get around that is about every 6 to 8 rows, you put a couple short rows in, and you add, 2 garter stitch rows. I kind of shut down, like, I don't want to do that. I don't know why it had to be like that. Well, I could have modified it and done my own thing, and I didn't. When I found the blanket in the TV room, I blamed the blanket. This is how bad I've gotten. I go, what are you doing here? Why? Like, why aren't you finished? And since I've been doing projects on small needles, it seemed gargantuan. I finished the one side, and it said sew together. Well, I did a crocheted kind of slip stitch, which looks very pretty. It also looks good on the back side, but it does kind of lean. The problem is, I was trying to get the other side the exact same amount of stitches, because then when you get to the top, then you finish the whole top. And I had to keep taking out because I had too many. Again, the back looks nice. This yarn is splitty. It's not plied. And one thing that I have learned is if a fingernail or something catches it, you can't get it back. You can't get it. You almost have to take some pink thread. So I'm thinking of you know, baby's fingernails. I did have a lot of ends to work in, but this side wanted to go the same direction. And no matter how many times I ripped it out and tried to crochet it this way or that way, I still got the same results. I don't know what I could have done differently. It's not blocked yet, but it is pretty. I really like it. I think anybody would like it, but if I did it again, I would knit the border at the same time. They also have another book all wrapped up, and there's a blanket in here. Well, I think this is nice with the variegated and the solids, the pinwheel. And there's the one that you kind of do like Grandma's big dishcloth, and then you turn it. But the one that I would like to do sometime is this one. I would like to do that one with almost like a sampler, but there's another blanket that I have to finish first. The next work in progress that I have targeted to finish is a shawl that I started years ago and ran out of yarn, and the yarn was discontinued. This is a pattern called Albanetta triangular shawl, because she also had a crescent one. I looked and looked and looked at my Ravelry projects. I looked through, I couldn't find the shawl. And I prayed, I asked God, please, would you bring to my mind the name of this shawl? And the next morning I woke up, Albanetta shawl by Alba. So Albanetta by Alba Lipinska, but Ravelry says no longer available on this site. I was able to locate another ball of this yarn that I tore down from a hat. It is a self-striping. It's going to be really pretty when it's blocked. It ends with a lace pattern, and that's why I didn't just want to start another color out of nowhere. Hopefully by the next podcast you can see all the pretty colors. This yarn, Painted Sky by Knitting Fever, is 2 colors wound together, and then one gradually changes, so you get this really pretty effect. And I am dedicated to getting that finished. Some new things. So yeah, there's my yarn I caked back up. Some of it that was really, really curly, I just cut off. You know, I'm not fancy. The yarn rep had a fit one time. You need to get better. I'm not fancy. This is the Perth cow. It was a pattern that came with Perth yarn, and it is really cozy. It's a fingering weight yarn, and I'm actually working with that right now. I always try to have a hat on the needles. This is called Katie's Kep, K-E-P, by Wilma Malcolmson. I'm doing mine with a skein of Perth. And again, this is like Painted Sky. It's 2 colors entwined that gradually change. So you start out with what I call corrugated ribbing. I did figure out that the main color, the blue, was supposed to go in there, but oh well. It's done on a US 3, and I just started it. So it's a new cast on. The crocheted berry cardigan, I'm going to get back at this week. I had a lot of questions for the designer, and I honestly don't think she understood what I was saying, that the pattern tells you to turn, but she's saying you don't. I kind of give up. I'm just going to... My new thing For St. Patrick's Day, instead of shamrocks, I decided to do frogs. This is the frog hat by Sarah Zimmerman. It's crocheted. Wouldn't a little child look cute in that? You could see them and the little ears would wiggle. I did this with a worsted weight yarn. The little cheeks. This is the baby size. I think 6 months, but maybe even a newborn could wear it. I mean, some babies have big heads. Then I cast on. I started one with You're a Baby Kaleidoscope in this green color that wasn't popular. And because it's a thin worsted, I put a sock yarn with it. And I got this. So there's the ear flaps. I've noticed not everybody does the ear flaps. She is repeatcrafterme.com. It's a free pattern. She also has a video. And I have to put the face on. I also started one with Cascade Pacific Chunky. Now this would fit an adult. I'll be here at the yarn shop with a frog hat on, making people laugh. There's no way I'm going to get the straps, but I had kind of figured out at the beginning that I was going to put hot pink and I'm going to do hot pink eyes and then the green and big eyes. And the other one, I'm not sure yet, but why not? Why not use your imagination and step outside the box and do something fun? Next thing, if you notice, I'm trying not to say S-O because I always say that during my podcast. I had now I'm starting to use the word kinda. It's like, boy, you get rid of one word and you pick up another. Feeling down about my husband always being exhausted and not being in good health, and I didn't even know that I was going to feel that way. It was just one day I just did. Now, there's a verse in the Bible that says, do not be conformed to this world. That word conform means being in the same pattern, but by the renewing of your mind every day, be transformed. That's Romans 12:2. And that word transformed is the same word that we get metamorphosis from. You're transformed. You're lifted up into a spiritual plane. The mind has to control the emotions or we will just get swept out to sea. How do you get the mind in control? First of all, you talk to your body. Well, I don't want to finish that blanket. And I say, body, you're not in control today. My mind is. Last night I stayed up all night. I just couldn't sleep. And years ago, when I was going through a horrible divorce, just crying all the time, I heard a phrase, read a book, don't waste your suffering. And ever since then, when a pet dies or something terrible happens, I work on a project or I make something beautiful, or I've had this book for quite a while. Crochet Living. It says Debbie Bliss, but it's by Nikki Trench. Debbie Bliss was the yarn. And I've been looking at these for a while. I think about 5 years ago, only this many knitters and crocheters were doing things for the home. Less than 10%, I think. In times past, people were making dishcloths and dish towels and pot holders and all of that. And women have lost that interest. But these placemats are really cute, and that is what's on the front of the book. 24 years ago, when my husband and I got married, my mother got me these dishes, and some are edged with yellow and have green in the middle, and some are pink and some are blue. And we've been starting to have some people over for dinner. In fact, I pulled a fast one on my husband. I knew he was feeling down about having to start more medicines and the word chemotherapy, but they say, oh, this is all good. We just have to switch the routine. You're good. And so I snuck behind his back and invited his friend Neil for dinner. And I wanted it to be a surprise. And Neil's like, well, how should I dress? Who's coming? Just bring yourself. What should I bring? Just bring your appetite. I'm making all this food, and I'm telling my husband, I'm going to really make a nice dinner for us, sweetheart. I'm going to light the candles. And I said, oh, and by the way, a lady is dropping something off for me to take to the yarn shop. Okay. So ding dong. I meet Neil at the door and I say, what? You didn't get the memo? It's a black tie. And he, what? I said, get in here. So I called to my husband, I want you to meet Nellie. And he said later, Nellie, I didn't want to meet Nellie, but it was Neil, and it really surprised him, and it was nice. We've had Neil over several times, and he said, don't you people know anybody else? In the book, it's done with a sport weight cotton. I picked, it's at least a worsted. It's supposed to be a heavy worsted and a bigger hook, because the pattern says, I think 8 inches and some odd. I looked up the classic dinner plate is 10.5 inches. And still, I had a small placemat. So I had to add a bunch of rows. And this cute little picot edging, which really with the plate on it, the only thing people are going to see is the edging. I don't like the way it, and that makes it fold under. So I'm going to redesign the edging. But that is one of the placemats. So I have a bunch of Ella Ray Phoenix cotton. It does split. It's mercerized, so it has that shine, but it definitely splits. So as you're crocheting the row below, you can pull one up and then it's split. Having said that, when it's finished and you kind of see those strands laying together, it does look cute. I also had some Taki Cotton Classic in that same weight. And what I decided to do was to make up my own pattern. And then I can make coasters with just the one section. This is my own pattern, and I kept modifying it. This is the start of one, a start of the placemat. But these are my smaller ones for dessert plates. And as you can see, you know, if I didn't have these holes, I could work them in a little bit, felt the back, and just stick them in like they do with amigurumi, but I don't think that's going to work. So I have that one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one. Don't you love it? I love it. I'll show you one more time. This one, this one, this one, and you can't be afraid. This one, and this one. When I started out, I had a double crochet there, and it looked too tall and too open. So then I went to a half double. But then I thought maybe 2 half doubles would be better than 1. But you lose that, I don't know, if you lose that almost that open effect. So every time I did one, I kept crossing out and I would like to write it up and give it out. Oh, so I think that's everything. I'm so happy you spent time with me. We're at the 30-minute mark, but I'm going to open up the Word of God. You can go to YouTube and you can type in any psalm, and someone will have written a song. And some people stick to the words, and some people just kind of pick and choose different words. But Psalm 1, if you have a Bible and you can open it, and if you're not into the Bible, I would encourage you to stay because it is amazing. It will change your life. Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the ungodly. Now, who is the ungodly? These aren't murderers. These are just people who don't love God. They're ungodly. If I start listening to a podcast and I hear, oh my gee, I'm done. I'm not trying to be judgmental, but that person doesn't respect God. We just had a shooting in York Hospital where a man went in there and opened fire. He killed a police officer. He hurt 5 people. It was awful. She had a near murder down the street, and this is a quiet town. But I'm not talking about murders, just the ungodly. People that want to give you advice. Get rid of that husband, or you go tell that lady at the work to get off the ungodly. Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the ungodly. That word walk in the Hebrew means to go forward, to follow. You're going to follow them. You're going to let them lead you. You're walking with them. Now these are negatives. He walks not. Blessed is the man who walks not, nor stands in the path of sinners. And that word stand, amad, means to remain and stand firm, steadfast. You went from walking with them to standing with them, coupling yourself with them. Nor sits in the seat of the scornful. Now that word sit, you've now settled in, ease. You've eased yourself. Same word that can be used for marriage. But, now here's God's but his delight is in the law of the Lord. And in his law he meditates day and night. He shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water. I always think of those weeping willows. When you see one and it's not by water, you want to somehow pick it up and move it because they thrive by water. He shall be like a tree. Who shall? The godly man. By the rivers of water that brings forth its fruit in its season. And your life has different seasons. Whose leaf shall not wither. And whatsoever he does shall prosper. The ungodly are not so, but are like the chaff, which the wind drives. When they thresh that wheat, and the worthless stuff just blows away. Therefore, the ungodly shall not, now we're using the word not for the ungodly, stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous. Who are the righteous? Those who love the Lord and have made him their Lord and Savior. We take on his righteousness. For the Lord knows the way of the righteous, but the way of the ungodly shall perish. That is Psalm 1. I love it. It's easy to memorize too. When you knit or crochet, if you open up the scripture, you can memorize while you're doing that row. Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor stands in the path of sinners, nor sits in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in that law does he meditate day and night. Do you ever wake up in the middle of the night? God needs his people praying all times. I wake up in the middle of the night, I say, I love you so much, my Lord and Savior, and I begin to pray. People are going to die that night. I don't want people to die without Christ. I recently heard a preacher say that he and another preacher went to talk to this man who was dying, imploring him to accept the blood of Christ for the forgiveness of his sins. And he said no. And he said that man died in absolute terror. When he died, they could not get his hands off the bed rail. Not so with the godly. The angels come for us. So I'd like to close with that. I have some specific goals to finish my frogs and then to do some little frogs. And I've gathered some information about frogs. There are over 6,000 species. The tiniest one is half an inch long. Their bulging eyes help them to see forward, sideways, and partially back. Their vocal cords are like these huge megaphones that you can hear a mile away. I was telling Bonnie and Holly tonight that years ago, my husband and I were spending the night in a little pop-up camper by a creek. We had a baby, and it was mating season for the bullfrogs. It was so loud. The baby kept crying. And then at 1:30 in the morning, we heard all these men. Well, the firemen were getting water out of the creek because there was a fire. And we packed up and went home. I'll never forget those frogs, how loud they were. God bless you. If your light isn't shining, if you're feeling down and discouraged, remember the verse in the Bible, God will light my candle. It means your candle's not lit right now. It went out. God will light it. Ask him. He will bring you joy among sorrow. He will chase away your tears and bring you joy. And every single tear is so precious to him that he saves it forever. Shine, shine, shine. I'll see you the next time.